Hello and welcome to 9-Inch Charge and welcome to an old world discussion. Today we're going to do something a bit different. Tom and I have been chatting and we've decided to do some shorter form videos that will go alongside our usual, what did you call them?
Ramblings.
Our usual ramblings, yeah. I mean, I was going to go for podcast. That's what I was aiming for, I think. But yeah, ramblings does seem appropriate. But we're going to do some shorter form videos. We'll talk about one particular topic, and try and wrap it up kind of within 10 minutes. And these will run weekly alongside our usual podcast. Today we're going to talk about plastic and resin and what we think that the old world will be made from. Tom, you're quite an expert in this, I think, because you've been playing and building. I mean, I was going to say you've dipped your toe into the heresy, but I do think you are struggling now to breathe. I think the heresy waterline is just about up to here now. You're kind of neck deep in the heresy, aren't you? So why don't you talk a bit about your experience of what kind of kits are plastic, what kind of kits are resin? Do you think that we'll see this in the old world or not when it comes out?
So a lot of the core troops and the more common and readily available vehicles and units you'd see, so your tactical marines, your Sakaran mainline battle tanks, your Predator tanks, your troop transports, they are all plastic now in Horus Heresy, which I think is excellent. And then you've got some really specialized units, so your Legion specific units. So for me, Dawnbreaker cohorts for the Blood Angels and things like that, and your Primarchs, they're all still resin. So I think in the old world, we might see a lot of core troops as plastic, and then a lot more speciality stuff. So you're like Way Watchers, where it might be a bit more resin, where there's going to be a little bit less of them.
Yeah, I think you're right there, Tom. I think when the game comes out, I think the core box will be plastic. And I think any subsequent army that they release, I would expect to see a core plastic box. And then, as you said, as you expand away from your core choices and you go towards heroes and things like that, I think we will see resin. This is what Hastings was saying. We spoke about in our podcast. We spoke about some rumors from Hastings, and he said that there's going to be, in his opinion, a lot of resin. But then we did have the article that came along that had the artwork for some of the old kits. So it had Bretonnian Knights, and it had Tomb King Chariot, and it had an Orc Boar Boy, and this was a artistic representation of a plastic kit, and Hastings had those kits to come back into production. So I think I agree. I think there will be your Boar Boys, your Knights, these sorts of things, and then anything new will be plastic or resin. But I think there'll be a heavy mix of resin from what we're hearing.
So I think I was going to say, I think a while ago it was in one of the posts that it's not being made by the specialist games, or it's a rumor that it's actually being made by one of the core Games Workshop studios. I know they split into loads of different teams, so I think they'll want to see it in the stores. I think if it ends up on just Forge World, I think the game will end up lost and not many people will really flock to it. But if it gets in the store and it's there front and center with your nice little display table that they do, and I think the only way they can do that is with plastic, because they don't like having resin in the stores yet.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's that they need a plastic box to sell and to be the poster boy. I don't mind if it's going to be resin. I would prefer it to be plastic. Me and Dan did a two Dannies about whether or not we prefer plastic or resin models, and I think the result was, when we did the poll on the community section, 93% of people voted for plastic. So obviously we'd overwhelmingly prefer that. But I am encouraged, although I'm not a big fan of Forge World resin, it is much more robust than Finecast. So I would really not like to see the return of Finecast, but I do know that that's something they could easily do, because they could port across the old, what used to be the metal miniatures, into Finecast and print them off. But the quality of Finecast, in my opinion, is just too poor, because it bends under heat. I mean, and not a lot of heat. People were putting models in their carry cases and they were breaking, and bending and warping. So I hope that we get plastic and then the Forge World style resin rather than Finecast. I think if they said to me, we're going to bring back, I don't know, a model that I really enjoyed, something like an Orion model, for my Wood Elves, and they said, we'll bring this character back, but the only way we can do it is to get, we're not going to make a new sculpt of him. We're going to bring back the old sculpt, but it'll have to be Finecast. I might be like, okay, well, if it's the only way. But I think you're right. I think hopefully it will mirror the Heresy, where we get a good solid box that you can, or choice of troops that you can make out of plastic and then expand however, and still play the game, and then expand however you want. And if you want to go down that rabbit hole, you will have to get some resin miniatures and things like that. But I think that's fine, really.
I think if it's going to be a game for the enthusiasts, right? So I think it lends heavily into being a Forge World game. But I think there's a lot they can do with plastic kits now. I mean, Heresy's a difficult one to compare with, because one box serves 18 armies, 18 plus, if people want to make their own legions and do like black shields and all of that kind of fun stuff. So you can release one box, it serves 18 people. With fantasy, you can release a box of spearmen, Empire spearmen, but they only serve the Empire players. So they could do a lot of dual kits. I think dual kits are an option. Like, everything's a dual kit now. So how difficult would it be to make a triple kit out of something?
I completely agree with that. Jeremy and I did a podcast episode about Cathay, and if you look at it, you've got like the Royal Guard and the Jade Guard and the Peasantry. But I think the Royal Guard and the Jade Guard, they could be quite easily a dual kit. Just looking at, and the cannon, for example, the cannon has two builds, but it looks very similar. Really, it's just like the barrel that changes. So yeah, I think you're exactly right there. When we see plastics, I think they will be dual kits, so you can maximize what you get out of them.
I'd like to see the special characters be resin, not like Forge World resin, because if you've seen a Horus Heresy Primarch kit in resin, it's absolutely divine. It's stunning, but it's like, it's a little bit off-putting how beautiful it is. Like, you don't want to just go in there and slap it with the dry brushing. You kind of want to do a few like master classes of how to paint a model. But I'd love to see that. That would be excellent.
All right. Well, I think that takes us up to the end of this new shorter format. So if you enjoy these shorter formats, let us know. Be sure to leave a comment and continue the discussion, because, as you know, Tom and I can ramble on for a long time, but we want to keep the discussion going, but in the comment section. So let us know in the comments what you think, whether it will be plastic or resin, and what kind of resin. And if you want to see more, please subscribe, and we will catch you next time.